Well, today is Easter Sunday, and I want to look at John chapter 20 with you. If you have a Bible, you can turn there. If not, we'll have it on the screen in a moment. But John chapter 20, and we're going to begin reading in verse 11. It says this: Mary was standing outside the tomb crying. And as she wept, she stooped and looked in. She saw two white-robed angels, one sitting at the head and the other at the foot, 6 feet apart, COVID safe. At the place where the body of Jesus had been lying. "Dear woman, why are you crying?" the angels asked her. "Because they have taken away my Lord," she replied, "and I don't know where they have put him." Mary is stooping in, looking in, overwhelmed with grief. Verse 14, she turned to leave. She saw someone standing there. It was Jesus, but she didn't recognize him. "Dear woman, why are you crying?" Jesus asked her. "Who are you looking for?" She thought he was the gardener. "Sir," she said, "if you have taken..." How many of y'all knew Mary was from South Jersey? She's like, "Sir, if you've taken him away, go get your manager. Sir, if you've taken him away, tell me where you put him, and I will go and get him." "Mary," Jesus said. And she turned to him and she cried out, "Rabboni," which is Hebrew for teacher. Hey, today I want to share an Easter message that may at times feel like an Easter story that I hope will bring encouragement, bring life, strengthen you in the areas you feel weak. Today I want to talk to you around the topic of hope. The title of the message today is Hope in the Middle. Hope in the middle. Would you bow your heads with me and pray on this Easter Sunday? Father, we love you so much. We are grateful for who you are. We're grateful for grace. We're grateful for love. We're grateful for who you are. Father, today on this Easter Sunday, we pray that you would open up our hearts to receive your word. God, to lift up those who feel weak, who feel hurt, who feel broken today. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can step in and turn it around. God, we're open, we're leaned in, and we're ready. Speak to us today. We love you, we praise you, and we pray it all in the name of the one that the tomb couldn't hold down, Jesus. And everybody said, amen, amen. You can find your seats. There's a lot of pressure on Easter for a pastor. I don't know if you feel pressure. I feel a lot of pressure on Easter, especially the opening story. I don't know how many of you want to be preachers. Most of you, I assume. But a pro tip is on Easter, you gotta lock down the opening story. It's the hook. The message is important, of course, but I had this message written 6 months ago. I sent it to the team, the outline. We had several meetings about it. The message was locked in. It was the opening story. You can't get on stage and fumble around and not have an opening story, because then you start to lose people. So I was thinking over the last several weeks, I got to have a good opening story. I got to connect. I got to love the audience. We got to connect on a soul level, because you might judge me, or, you know what I mean? You might not be into it. You might be like, "Bro, your pants are too short to see your socks," and not, So you got to have a good opening story. And I needed a story about like an unlikely person taking center stage in a key moment and really coming through, which shouldn't be hard, right? Like I just got to like retell the story of Rudy. And we're all like, oh yes, unlikely hero. or like Captain America. There's like 90% of movies I could just pull a story out, but I was having trouble. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Having trouble finding an opening story for Easter. Easter, you can't mess up on Easter. You can't get up, fumble around with junk. You gotta have something good. So I had this one story, and I was thinking about telling this one story. And I'm not gonna tell this story, but in fact, it's not really a story as much as it is an example, because I couldn't think of a story. And I was like, maybe I'll just get up on Easter Sunday and I'll just kind of walk through the Bible real loosely and just point out all the people who were unlikely heroes that God used. So I'm not gonna do this, but I was gonna be like Abraham. Like Abraham was unknown and God used him, father of many nations, father of Israel, father of Jesus. Out comes salvation from an unknown man. Moses is a murderer. God used him to free the people. David, the youngest, becomes king. Esther, obscure, unknown person, becomes queen, saves the whole nation. But then I was thinking, I can tell from some of I'm glad I didn't tell that, because I can tell from some of your faces, that's just kind of lazy. You know, I'm just being honest, that would be a lazy way to go. So then I have this other story. I was gonna tell you about this time in college. I was on a softball team, and I was on the team. Being on the team doesn't mean I was any asset to the team. I was just on the team. They just needed somebody. I was like, all right, I can play. So I was on this softball team, and one game we were one person short. So somebody on the team was like, I know somebody. And we're like, all right, bring him out. And homeboy shows up, and 5 foot flat, 4 foot round. And we're like, bro, you already signed us up like the AAA league. Like these are like people who like tried to be in the MLB, didn't make the MLB. And then there's like me, and I'm getting up. And I'm like, all right, let's go. And this dude shows up. Turns out he gets up to the plate, hits a home run, first swing. Fastest dude on the team. His leg, like it was like a cartoon. Dude's legs, it was just like a blur and a puff of smoke. Just running around the bases. And I was thinking, maybe I'll tell that story. And then I was thinking, I can't tell that story on Easter. I don't even know this dude. I don't even remember this dude's name. I can't get up here on Easter and tell you a story about some dude that I don't know. So I was like, I can't tell that one. And then I remembered Pastor Emily was telling me this story about when she was in kindergarten. And her class was putting on was it Roger the Rabbit? Peter Rabbit. Who's Roger the Rabbit? Is that the Nesquik Rabbit? Peter Rabbit. And they were putting on a Peter Rabbit play. And, but they had a class pet that was a rabbit called Nibbles. So this was Nibbles Rabbit, not Peter Rabbit. They were putting on a play. Turns out the girl who was the star, the girl who was Nibbles, she got stage fright, and she was like, I can't do it anymore. So Pastor Emily went to the teacher and was like, I want the job. I want the job. And the teacher said, well, you're too shy. You can't have the job. Turns out that Pastor Emily ends up being Nibbles, the rabbit. And long story short, she got an Oscar. It was in the whole thing. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll tell the story of an unlikely Nibbles. But then I was thinking, but that's not even my story. What if Pastor Emily preaches next Easter and she wants to tell Nibbles' story? I can't give this story away and waste her story. But the thing about Easter is you got to have a good, you can't get up and waste people's time, fumble around with stories that don't work. And so at the end of the day, I have no opening story. And so I hope we can look past that and we come to John chapter 20. The absolute apex of the story of the Bible. And center stage is a woman named Mary. As John tells the story, Mary is the only one at the tomb. Peter and John showed up momentarily, but they didn't last very long. Only Mary stuck it out. Mary, here's the question I have is It's fascinating that at the climactic point in the entire story of the Bible, really the entire story of human history, the moment that everything will be changed forever, and center stage is Mary. Who's Mary? Who's Mary? Where's Mary from? The Bible tells us she's from Magdala. In fact, she's often referred to as Mary the Magdalene, which sounds pretty cool. Magdala. Well, what's Magdala? It must be an important city. Magdala is a small, insignificant, poor fishing village in Galilee. And here we are at the most climactic moment in the story of the Bible. And center stage appears who? Obscure Mary. From where? Insignificant Magdala. Who is Mary? And why Mary? Why Mary at this point in the story? Why is this person center stage when Jesus has just defeated death, brought life and immortality? He has freed us from the bondage of sin and death and brokenness. And Mary? Who's Mary? Mary from Magdala. The Bible tells us one thing about Mary. A little bit of who she was, just to kind of set us up a little bit. It comes in Mark chapter 16, verse 9. It also appears in Luke chapter 8, verse 2, where it tells us this about Mary. Mary, the Magdalene, the woman from whom Jesus had cast out 7... What's that? Oh, it's Easter. Get that off the screen. The one who Jesus cast out 7 demons. So when they said there's something about Mary, it meant a little bit something different back then. Mary from whom 7 had been, what? Mary had a past, y'all. Mary struggled with some stuff. 7 stuffs. In fact, in the Bible, 7 is often not a number, but is actually a symbol. It means all of it, complete, nothing left out, all of it. What the Bible's trying to say is Mary had a lot of issues. She had a lot of struggles. She had a lot of things that she was working out in her life. And Jesus was with Mary through all of it. This is important that Jesus was with Mary in all the darkness, all the pain, all the difficulty, all the failure. He was with her not through some of it, but all of it. This is important, right? Because we have friends that will be with us through some of it. They can deal with some of your stuff. They can deal with some of your problems. They can deal with some of your pain. And it's really not their fault, but a lot of us have a tipping point. That's a little bit too much. I can deal with some of it, but I don't know if I want to deal with all of it. Mary must have had some friends who were out on Easter brunch having mimosas, and one of them pipes up and they're like, ladies, I love Mary. I do. Is that Mary? No, that's not Mary. I love Mary, but I just want to be honest. I'm going to tell you, speak my truth. I love Mary, but lately, there's just something about Mary. And that other friend, that cowardly friend, is like, I'm just glad you said something. Because I love Mary too. And I'm going to use this opportunity as an opportunity to gossip under the facade of concern. I also have some concerns about, but Jesus didn't do any of that. Jesus wasn't afraid of Mary's darkness. He wasn't judgmental about her failures. He wasn't ashamed to be around her. But this Jesus was with Mary through all of it, which means for Mary, Jesus was the only one she could really rely on. He was the one that she could count on even when things got real bad. I know I can count on Jesus. And now as John tells the story, here's Mary from Magdala, the one with the seven stuffs. And she's alone at the tomb. Isn't it interesting that the one who received the most from his presence is now suffering the most in his absence? I would assume Peter would stick it out. I would assume maybe John would stick it out. I would assume maybe one of the disciples would stick it out. And yet the one who actually sticks it out is obscure Mary from insignificant Magdala that Mark tells us has some stuff. And here she is alone at the tomb. Maybe after all, it's not so surprising that she is the only one who stuck it out, because it's often those who receive the most grace who are filled with the most gratitude. Those who struggle with the most stuff have a clearer perspective. And Mary received so much from Jesus. And now he's gone. What do you do when you lose what you've always leaned on? What do you do when you no longer have what you hoped in? What 2020 did for many of us is it took away the things that we used to lean on. The things that we used to find security in, the things that we used to hope in. At least at the end of the day, at least I can count on this. At least I can count on them. At least I can count on this always being here, and those things are taken away. What do you do when you lose what you've leaned on? What do you do when you no longer have what you've hoped in? And so the angels come, right? And the angels ask a question. Why are you crying? It's a complicated question. Knowing what we now know about Mary, obscure, from Magdala, insignificant. Mark tells us she had a past, and the one who was with her through it all was Jesus. And now you want to know why I'm crying? That's a complicated question. I don't know about you, but in the moments and times when stuff is taken away from you, when there's loss, when the dreams and the goals are evaporated into thin air and you're left looking into an empty tomb of what used to be, and the question comes, why are you so distraught? It's a complicated question. What she says is, I don't know where he is. What she doesn't say, but what we can say from reading the rest of the story, is what she really wanted to say was perhaps, I don't know where he is. And if I don't know where he is, I don't know where I am. I don't know where what I leaned on, I don't know where it is. I don't know where my identity is anymore now that it's been taken away. I don't know where my trust is anymore. I don't know where my future lies. I don't know what I'm doing. It's all been taken away. And I'm just sitting here staring into the tomb of what used to be. And you want to know why I'm crying? You want to know why I'm disappointed? You want to know why I'm distraught? I don't know where he is, and if I don't know where he is, who am I? Jesus, the one who spoke so much life over me, the one who told me not to be trapped by my past, the one who told me there's a brighter future, the one who told me there's a fresh start, there's a new chapter, and now Jesus himself is gone. Where does it leave me? Why is Mary crying? It's a complicated question. Who is Mary? I don't know if you woke up this morning, this pressing question, but I think it's a question that when we get to the bottom of it is the question that we all need to answer. Who is Mary? Perhaps Mary, from Magdala with the 7, the one who lost what she leaned on. Maybe Mary is, above all this morning, a symbol. A symbol of disappointment. A symbol of pain. A symbol of the moments, seasons, times in life where what we lean on is taken away, where what we hoped in we no longer have. Maybe Mary is a symbol of being overwhelmed by loss, overwhelmed by life. Who is Mary? Who is Mary? Center stage in the story of the resurrection, the climactic moment in human history, the moment where God's plan comes together once and for all. And here she is, unknown, alone, and obscure, sitting outside the tomb of what used to be, reflecting on the life that once was, entertaining the memories and the dreams and the goals that have now been taken away, filled with brokenness and hopelessness. Who is Mary? To be honest, maybe Mary is me. Oh, maybe this is not simply the story of someone 2,000 years ago that we just sit at from a distance, hands on hips, and looking down at to dissect and to understand from an intellectual level. No, the story of the resurrection you cannot ascend to intellectually. It's an existential experience that you must step into. Who is Mary? Mary's not somebody else. Mary's me. Mary is me in every moment of my life. That I thought I knew what was going on, that I thought I knew who I was, that I thought I knew who God was, that I thought I knew what the path was and what the future would hold, and then it all gets taken away, and I'm left in this moment alone, obscure, not knowing what's to come, not knowing what's around me, peering into the tomb. Maybe Mary's me. Maybe Mary's you. Maybe this is not simply a story of somebody else. One of the dangers of reading the Bible is that we often read it like it's somebody else's story. Oh, yeah, Moses running from his past. Oh, is that about him or you? Peter, knowing what his calling is and yet doubting that he could be who God called him to be. Is that really a story about Peter? Or is that a story about me every Wednesday afternoon? This is not simply the story of somebody named Mary. Mary stands as a symbol. Mary stands for us today. Maybe Mary is me, peering into the tomb of what was, looking for some kind of answer. And I think it's got to be Mary, because if it was somebody else, like if it was Peter, we'd all be like, yeah, but homeboy walked on water. You know, like, all right. If it was John, we'd be like, yeah, but John's Jesus' favorite. Of course it's John. But it's not. It's obscure Mary from insignificant Magdala that Mark says, oh, she has some demons. Oh, she had some issues. Oh, she had some stuff. It's got to be Mary, because Mary's the person in the story that we least expect. And the truth is, this Easter morning, the person you and I least expect to be center stage is me. And yet that's what the Easter story does. It confronts every single one of us at the deepest level of our own disappointments, and it leans in and asks the question that the angels asked: why are you crying? Sometimes even in the shadow of an empty tomb, it's hard to see hope. Mary, why are you crying after receiving no answer from the angels? The text says this: so she turned to leave. She turned to leave. Why are you crying? Because I don't know where he is. If I don't know where he is, I don't know where I am. And she turns to leave. Leave to return to what? Who she used to be. If he's no longer here to be with me, do I just return to my old life? My old struggles, my old addictions, my old pain, my old relationships? Do I simply turn and go back to the only life that I know? And Mary turns to leave? How many moments in our lives do you and I, in the midst of disappointment, peering into the tomb of the life that used to be, with all of our dreams and all the vision we used to have about the way life would be, and we're peering in broken, disappointed, obscure, feeling like we are alone and we are weeping and broken, and the question comes, why are you crying? And the answer is, why did we even bother? Maybe I'll just return to what I used to know. Maybe I'll just go back to the only life that I've lived. And so the text says she turned to leave. She turned to leave, but when she turned, the text says she saw somebody. Oh, somebody. She saw, but this somebody was not just anybody. This was the somebody who was with her. Yeah, who was with her through all of the stuff, through every other pain, disappointment, and darkness, through every other failure. And though she does not recognize that is him, what John is trying to get you and me to see is the same God that was with her in her darkest moments has not left her, but he's just as present now as he was back then. And in the moments that you and I cannot see that he is with us, John wants you to know he's still with you. His presence is still with you, even when you can't see him, even when you don't know it's him, even when you can't see with the physical eyes. She turned to walk away. She turned to head back to an old life, an old way of living, the way things used to be, because obviously this life isn't working. And as she turns, she sees somebody, and this somebody asks her in a voice that's oddly familiar and yet distinctly different, why are you crying? Jesus connects with her on the level of her disappointment, but he presses it deeper than the question of the angels. This is something that the angels miss out on because they only ask her about her loss. But Jesus turns loss to longing, and he says, why are you crying? Who are you looking for? Every disappointment is the gap between our loss and our longing. The life that used to be, the life that once was, what our hopes used to be, and what we're actually hoping for. And what's so fascinating is that the one she finds in the middle of her loss and her longing is the embodiment of hope. What have you lost? What are you longing for? There's hope in the middle. Every single one of us have these moments of disappointment where we feel caught in between loss and longing. It's so fascinating that in the climactic moment in the story, for thousands of years, God has been writing a story of redemption, and it all leads to a moment where center stage is someone we least expect. Mary from Magdala with a whole lot of history. And Jesus is interested. What have you lost? What are you longing for? Because in the middle, there's hope. Once again, verse 16, Mary turns to leave. And Jesus calls out, this time not with questions, but with a name. It's fascinating, right? That the name is the thing that cues her off to who this is. In the name of getting ready to turn back to the life that used to be, and a word comes out that she's heard many times before, Mary. In the past failures, she's heard this word a lot, Mary. Mary, in the past, in the struggle, in the difficulty, in the darkness, in the pain, she heard it before, Mary, Mary. Mary, it's not over. Mary, you don't have to live in that anymore. Mary, there's a brighter future. Mary, there's a new hope. Mary, there's something more for you. Mary, the best is yet to come. Mary, your life's not over. Mary, you don't have to be defined by what you used to struggle with and what your past says about you. Mary, in the moment that Jesus calls Mary by name, the lights turn on and she turns to him and says, oh, how could I doubt that the one who has been with me through it all would give up on me now? It's you. It's you. It's you. Because in the middle of our loss and our longing, there is hope in the middle. The fascinating thing is that Mary's looking in the tomb. She's looking for what used to be. But Jesus is not in Mary's past. Jesus is waiting for Mary in her future. For some of us today, I just want to encourage you. I think it's time to turn our eyes away from the tomb of what used to be. Because Jesus is not waiting for you in your past. And it doesn't mean it didn't hurt. Oh, I know it hurt, and I know it was painful, and I know it broke you, and I know it almost took you out. But there's got to come a time where we encourage ourselves and say, I'm no longer stooping down. I'm no longer peering in. I'm no longer looking at what was. Jesus is not in my past. He's waiting for me in my future. And I got to stand up. And I got to embrace that the one who has been with me through it all, even through the moments and seasons when I did not recognize him, that he is waiting for me once again. Mary. Mary's me, Mary's you. Perhaps on this Easter Sunday, the name that you need to hear is simply your name. That's the name that he's calling out right now. For those of us who are considering turning back, for those of us who don't know if we can continue on, for those of us who feel like this is over, I don't know what the future holds, and in comes Jesus' small, still voice. Mary. 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 Mary's looking in the grave, but he's in the garden. She believes she's looking in a grave of what died, but she's actually standing in a garden of new beginnings. This is no grave site. This is a garden where something new is about to burst forth. This is a garden where something new is about to start, where your best is yet to come. You know what's fascinating? This isn't the first time that God is viewed as a gardener. The only other time that God is viewed as a gardener is in Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, he's walking in the garden with the people. He's the gardener. He's the gardener when there's a new beginning. And now Jesus raises from the dead. He's raised from the dead. The Bible says the firstborn of the new creation. So in the first creation, God is in the garden, but there's a new creation bursting forth. And once again, Jesus as the gardener is in the garden. And I want to encourage you today that no matter what grave site you think you're standing in of your past life, that there's a new beginning, that God is up to something, that God's going to grow something in your life that lasts. It's what he does. And he's the only one who can. Just want to leave you with this today. And no matter your past, your pain, and your disappointment, and no matter how big the gap between your loss and your longing, in that middle place is where he wants to meet you. In the middle is where hope is. Can I invite you today to stand with me? I believe that today is a moment of new beginnings. I believe for some of us that God is going to stir something in us to open up our eyes to realize I'm not in the graveyard. oh no, this is the first day of a new story. I want to invite you today just to simply bow your head and close your eyes for a moment. We're all in this room together. Those online, I want to encourage you too to just simply close your eyes. I want to offer you an invitation today. As you stand center stage in the Easter story, feeling obscure, feeling insignificant, well aware of your past failures, and yet Jesus calls your name. I want to offer you an invitation today. I'm going to just simply count to 3. No one's looking around. This is between you and God, but there is something powerful that happens when you make an external demonstration of an internal decision. And I'm going to count to 3. Hey, and if you're here today and you say, hey, I want to respond to that. I want to respond to Jesus. I don't know what this entails. I don't know all the details. I'm a little bit nervous, but I just know I need Jesus. And maybe you're here today and you made this decision a long time ago, but maybe God's stirring something new up in you. We want to invite you to on the count of 3. Let's do this together. Ready? Don't be shy. Don't be ashamed. We're among friends here. 1, 2, 3. If that's you, come on, with courage, with strength, just shoot that hand up. You don't got to keep it up. Just put it up. And I want to lead you in this prayer. Say something like this in your own heart. Just say something like this. God, thank you for your love. God, thank you for your grace. Thank you that through every failure of my life, through every dark season, even in the times and moments I didn't see you, you've always been there. Today I confess with my mouth, I believe in my heart that you are King. And today, by faith, I declare this is my new beginning. This is my new story. This is the beginning of the best part of my life. You're turning this grave into a new garden, and I'm stepping in with faith. Come on, let's sing it out, church.